Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for your patience. For those of you that made it on the call, our new virtual world sometimes has some hiccups, and these are sometimes accompanied by heart palpitations. So thanks for your patience and grace and understanding. For those of you that weren't able to join us and you are hearing this in a later recording, we apologize to you for the inconvenience, but assure you that you will get the same information as if you had attended live this morning. So a new link was, as Maria said, sent to every registrant's email. For those of you that are using the phone as an alternative this morning, please mute your phone. Thank you very much. And welcome to all of you that did make it on the call this morning, and again to those who will listen to the recording of this session. Our goal is to help you successfully apply for the Economic Resiliency Grant. I also want to say thank you to the North Dakota business community. While the federal government has made billions of dollars available through the CARES Act to individuals, small businesses, healthcare systems, and other important sectors of our economy to mitigate the impact of the pandemic, you have shared with us that gaps continue to exist, including customer reluctance to re-enter the marketplace. You understand better than anyone the need to recapture the markets and consumers before the temporary solutions like staying home, shopping less, traveling less, dining out less, become the preferred solutions. Over the past 4.5 months, we have interacted with businesses daily to understand your environment, your needs, and the boots on the ground reality of your business community. Through these interactions, you presented us with a foundation for the Economic Resiliency Grant as an answer to the challenge of how to inspire customers to return to the marketplace safely. I want to say a quick thank you to a couple business owners from across the state with whom I've spoken to in just the last week or so. Greg from B&N Oil in Grand Forks, Haley and Sydney from Daily Addictions Coffee in Williston, and Kevin, who manages a group of franchises here in North Dakota and elsewhere, and all of the other businesses with whom we have been in direct contact over these many months. Your insight, your courage, and your encouragement helps us every day. You inspire us to do our work. I also want to say thank you to the team at the Department of Commerce for their tireless work over the past 4.5 months and dedication always. Today, we look forward to sharing an overview of the ERG program with you so that you can begin to assemble your ideas and your proposal for a grant application. When you registered for today's session, you had the opportunity to submit one or more questions. We have reviewed these questions and tried to incorporate the most common questions into our discussion today and answer them in our FAQs that can be found at ndresponse.gov. You will also have the opportunity to ask questions at the end of this session. While we will not get into all the questions, each of them is important as they will be reviewed and incorporated into the FAQs upon the conclusion of this call. Please plan to review these FAQs frequently as they will be updated routinely, even after the grant opens. Our goals for the remainder of today's call are to review the spirit and intent of the Economic Resiliency Grant to prepare you to apply when the application is available. We will discuss the ERG's purpose, eligibility, application process. Then we'll get a preview of the application itself, walking through it step by step. We will follow that with an overview of your obligations should you receive this award. We will end with Q&A and next steps, and we'll close with remarks from my colleague Eric Spencer from the Greater North Dakota Chamber, who's been a valued partner throughout this state of emergency and always. So first, as we worked hard to do over the past 139 days of this state of emergency, we wanted to share this information with you early and keep you apprised to help you prepare concurrent to the development of the application process so that we can together act as quickly as possible. Since the grant was approved by the legislature just on June 25th, we have been working to complete a 4 to 6 month project in a much shorter time frame due to the deadline by which the CARES Act funding can be used and the need for the Economic Resiliency Grant in our business community. This involves knitting together a complex procurement, legal, compliance, and technology process and controls to ensure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. and to ensure a smooth experience for you, the applicant. We are in the final stages of launching this grant application, but as the process is still being finalized, it does remain subject to modification. We previously shared that our target date for launch was July 31st. While the grant will not launch on July 31st, we are closing in on a launch date, and it will be announced as soon as it's confirmed. We will communicate with you through our website, ndresponse.gov, our social media channels, and our newsletters. Which brings us to this. Right now, pull out your phone. I know you have it there with you. It is crucially important that you follow us at CommerceND on Facebook and Twitter, at DEPT of Commerce on LinkedIn, at Commerce North Dakota on Instagram, and also sign up for our newsletters. This slide doubles as a toolkit, and there are live links throughout, including the link to which you can sign up for our newsletters. We have a responsibility to make this information known as broadly as possible, and we do need your help. So please share this information, share it on your social media, your Twitter, your Facebook, your Instagram, your LinkedIn. Be sure to tag the Department of Commerce and remember that we are in this together. So I'll wait for just a moment as you complete the act of following us on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram. And I'll remind you all that a recording of this session will be available upon the conclusion of this session. So for those of you that are hearing this in a recorded format, again, we apologize for the technical difficulty this morning and hope that you still find this information as useful as if you had been able to join us live. All right, let's get into it. The Economic Resiliency Grant. The sentence that you see on this slide not only defines the purpose of the grant, but contains several key words and phrases upon which the applications will be evaluated. Private companies operating in North Dakota are eligible to receive funding for costs associated with improvements to their businesses for the purpose of reducing the spread of COVID-19 and instilling customer confidence in the marketplace. We will walk through eligibility, both eligible businesses and eligible expenses next. To discuss eligibility, I'm going to walk through these underlined elements. Private companies are eligible. The ownership type, such as sole proprietor, partnership, corporation, S-corp, nonprofit, this is not the determinative factor. The business must be licensed to business in North Dakota, either by the Secretary of State or a tribal licensing authority. The business must also have a permanent physical location in North Dakota. The investment proposed to be made must decrease the spread of infection, and this will have to be clearly articulated in the application. If you have already made qualified improvements after March 27th, these expenditures may be reimbursed through the grant. Whether the improvements have been already made or you will be submitting a proposal for future improvements, take care to keep very detailed documentation, as there will be an audit of your expenses post-award. Best practice would be to keep the grant award accounted for separately, track your expenses, and ensure they're clearly aligned with your proposal. Finally, marketplace. Applicants must demonstrate how they directly interface with consumers or how the improvements directly benefit consumers through supply chain impacts. Into the questions that we've received to this point. We've received some specific questions about eligibility. Churches. A number of places of worship have already incurred costs for things that reduce infection and create distance between parishioners, and have asked whether any of these costs incurred to create distance by launching into live stream of church services would be applicable. These expenses would be eligible if it is a nonprofit entity and the purchases were made after March 27th. For at-home businesses, certain at-home businesses are eligible. These include licensed home daycares and agri-based businesses like wineries or ag event facilities. Other at-home businesses are not eligible at this time for the primary reason that the distinction between business and personal benefit is ambiguous and outside the risk tolerance considering the approved uses of CARES Act money. Seasonal businesses do qualify if the business otherwise meets the requirements of the grant and was viable in the 2019 season. For franchisees, we've received a number of questions about franchisee eligibility under various ownership structures. The intent is that North Dakota businesses with more than one physical location are eligible for no more than $100,000 regardless of the ownership structure. For example, a salon chain or a restaurant chain that has 5 or 6 or 7 or 3 locations, each under a common ownership structure, would be eligible for no more than $100,000. Moving into applicant ineligibility. While eligibility for the grant is quite broad, remembering that the spirit and intent of the grant is to inspire customer confidence to return to the marketplace, generally, there must be both consumers and a marketplace. Companies that are able to relocate employees to remote workplaces and maintain productivity are typically ineligible. Personal or private residential improvements are ineligible, as I discussed a moment ago. Home-based businesses that are eligible may still have eligible purposes, again, if they're a childcare facility that is licensed or egg-based. Government entities like universities and the K-12 system are not eligible. Other government-funded businesses may be ineligible, but they are not categorically ineligible, as we recognize there are instances where, for example, a city may own a liquor store, a daycare, or a grocery store. Those entities will not be ineligible just because they are owned by the city, because they otherwise meet the definition of a business that provides goods or services to consumers in the marketplace, which is consistent with the spirit of this grant. Costs relating to lobbying activities are ineligible. However, to illustrate that grant eligibility is not tied to the type of business organization, like a partnership, an S Corp, 501c3, a 501c6 organization, for example, with an office environment, would not be eligible for office improvements. While the same organization, if it is a host of a street fair, for example, would be eligible to apply for costs relating to improving safety at the street fair, such as buying cones for consumer spacing or hand washing stations and other items to control the spread of infection for safe marketplace interactions. On this slide, you see the asterisk by each of the bullets. This is to illustrate that we recognize that there are a variety of circumstances that need to be considered, keeping in mind that the purpose of the grant ensures that no business entity will be categorically denied based on its business structure, and each will be reviewed carefully for consistency with the spirit and intent of the grant. On to eligible expenses. Investments are to be made to reduce the spread of infection. These must be direct investments. The burden is on the applicant to prove that the investment is directly connected to infection control, as certified under criminal penalty. I need to emphasize this. Examples of direct investments include investments that reduce repetitive touch, improvements that create distance between customers or employees, purchases of items that directly control infection. And these are just high-level categorical examples. We believe that you, as the business owner, are closest to your business and to your customer, and we expect that you will have some of the most impactful solutions. But as I mentioned, the impact must be direct. Examples of ineligible expenses for lack of directness would include marketing and advertising costs associated with spending the grant money or advertising improvements, labor costs, like costs to pay commercial cleaners. The only labor costs that are permitted are those relating to the installation of infection control improvements. Also, this grant is not intended for payroll costs, refinancing debt, operating costs, or other expenses not related to COVID-19 safety measures. If you need funds for these type of expenses and you have not already applied for the Paycheck Protection Program, the deadline as of today is August 8th. We are hearing information that that too may be extended, but as of today, it is still open for about another week. Eligible expenses. We have received several questions about back-ordered items. You may purchase an item that is back ordered so long as the item is paid for and installed, if applicable, within the 45 days. If an item may be purchased within 45 days but not installed within that time frame, the installation costs are not eligible. Some businesses have indicated to us when they ask this question and receive this answer that they are willing to share the cost in order to participate in the ERG. This is your choice, but you need to understand that costs incurred after 45 days from the date of the award grant will not be eligible. We've received a lot of questions about HVAC systems and air quality systems and air purifiers. These are allowed expenses if you can show the connection to virus protection. That information would likely come from the manufacturer or a website or in other places, but you have to be able to show the connection to virus protection. On to ineligibility, we want to make a special note that sales tax is not an eligible expense. This is critically important. If you submit sales tax as part of your request for your reimbursement or for your proposal, your application may stall. You may lose your place in line if you accidentally or purposefully request reimbursement or propose to be reimbursed for North Dakota sales tax. Also, software and hardware purchases to allow employees to work remotely in an office environment do not qualify. While workplace safety is important, regardless of whether the workplace entertains customers or not, at this time, investments to enable remote work for employees without direct contact with customers or a marketplace is not consistent with the spirit and intent of this grant. I think I already mentioned this, and it is quite purposeful that we are mentioning it once again. Please note that sales tax is not an eligible expense. So be sure to remove that from your application for reimbursement if you've already invested in improvements, and do not include it in your proposal. On to the application process. The ERG is first come, first serve. Your application will be dated and time-stamped to show your place in line. The application will be online, accessed through ndresponse.gov COVID resources when it is available. The comprehensiveness and completeness of your application will benefit you. If a reviewer determines your application is incomplete, you will be notified via email, and you will have 72 hours to answer a question, or you will lose your place in line. So we urge you to monitor the email account that you registered at the time of application. We will communicate with you regularly via our social media channels, press releases, our website, and ndresponse.gov. So if by the end of the call you have not followed our social media accounts, I urge you to take a moment or two to make sure that you are following the Department of Commerce channels on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. In the application process, you'll be required to make a number of certifications, including but not limited to being registered to do business in North Dakota, having one or more permanent physical locations, having been financially solvent prior to March, and having been negatively financially affected by COVID-19. Also, that you will use the money for approved expenses only and return the difference if applicable. Again, the more specific you are in your application about how your proposal aligns with the intent of the grant, the more likely your approval. We have received a number of questions about the application itself. Many questions will be answered once you see the actual application in just a moment, but I would like to address a few ahead of time. The question of whether a third party can complete your application for you. The answer is no. The application requires a number of certifications that can only be made by the applicant. Sole proprietors doing business in your full personal or legal name and not a trade name that does not have Secretary of State registration number or EIN. We will accept these as you can as a sole proprietor. Without an EIN, use your Social Security number in the contact reference area. The application requires an NAICS or NAICS code. We've had questions about what this is. This is a federal identification number that identifies your industry. To save you time, you can look up your NAICS code on the internet if you do not already know it. If you have recently purchased a business and took ownership during COVID, the last 138 days, do new owners qualify? The answer is yes, if the business was viable and you can provide and show the impact, the negative impact due to COVID, along with compliance with the other business grant requirements. We've had questions about how do you prove a business was financially viable prior to COVID? You must self-certify that you are an eligible business and that you would be willing to provide financial information if audited. Also, what does it mean to have had a negative financial impact by the coronavirus pandemic? Again, a negative fiscal impact will be self-certified at the beginning of the application and could be asked for if the business is awarded the grant. The impact could be the loss of business, a delay of business activities, additional purchases needed for health, safety, and continued business operations, or a temporary business closure as examples. How long will it take for an application to be reviewed once submitted? We are anticipating thousands of applications in a very short amount of time. We're anticipating that most applications will be reviewed after 2 weeks from submittal, but that is a question that we are working on, and I can say with certainty we'll be working as hard as we can without providing you a hard deadline when the application will be reviewed and you'll receive a response given the volume that we'll be dealing with. Another question about once it's approved, how long until the check is received? Again, I'm going to give you an answer based on our best anticipation that typically checks will be mailed within 72 hours of the approval, but this could vary depending on the amount of work required to verify the business legitimacy, to walk through our control steps and so forth, and again, will be very much tied to volume. These and answers to many other questions are available at our FAQs. We'll review the questions submitted at the time of registration for this section and during our upcoming Q&A here today. Next, we are going on a guided tour of the actual application. I need to ask you to please turn up your speakers. As we tested this, we learned that the volume of the tour is a little bit lower. So turn up your speakers. This will take about 12 minutes. And please take note of any questions that arise while you're viewing the tour of the application. We may have time to answer those questions at the end of this session.
Welcome to the North Dakota Department of Commerce Economic Resiliency Grant Application Portal. To begin the application process, click on the Sign In button on the right-hand side of your screen. Select the Register tab. Create an account using an email address associated with your business. Enter a unique password, confirm the password, and register your account. Review the terms and conditions and the cookies disclosure. Select the I agree box and click Continue. Select the blue Confirm Email link. Email verification is required to continue in the portal. Enter your first name, last name, and Social Security number, which are all required. Select the Update button to update your profile in the portal. Once the email confirmation is received, click the Complete Registration button in the body of the email. This will notify you that you have successfully registered your email address. To begin the application process, select the Home button. Then select the Create Application button. Complete the business name that is applying for the grant program. Enter the tax identification number. It will either be an EIN provided by the IRS, a tribal number, a state tax ID number, or a Social Security number, which is for sole proprietors only. Select the Save button. Your business will be verified. Select the Next button. The next page is for taxpayer information. Your name as the primary contact and applicant has been brought over. Complete the remaining fields with your title, your phone number, and select your relationship to the business from the drop-down list. Complete the physical address information for your business located in North Dakota. There is a magnifying glass next to the city field. Select it, and a search box will open. Begin typing in the name of your city in the search field. Once you locate it, put a check mark next to the name of the city and select the Select button. If your mailing address is the same as your physical location address, select the Same as Physical Address button, and those fields will populate for you. Enter the number of employees you had at the physical location on January 1st, 2020, and below that, enter the number of employees you currently have at the physical location today. Select the Next button to continue. The application page has several Yes, Agree, or No, Disagree fields, and several fields to pick a response from a list. Review each question and select the appropriate response by clicking the down arrow in the field. If you have received funding for your business, select the response that best fits that type, all, partial, or no funding. If you select partial, a required description field will display. There are two NAICS fields for primary code and level 2 code. Use the magnifying glass to search for the NAICS code that best defines your business the same way you searched for the city. Always use an asterisk in the search field to expand the search results. Enter a business conducted description and select the Next button to continue. On the facilities page, the original facility location information you entered at the beginning of the application will be displayed. If you have additional locations in North Dakota, you can add them by clicking on the Add Location button. A dialog box opens. Complete the required fields and click the Submit button at the bottom of the page for the additional location. Any locations you add will be displayed in the grid. Click the Next button to move to the next page of the application. On the Qualified Expenditures page, you will itemize each eligible expense that you have made or will make to reduce the spread of infection due to COVID-19. The eligible amount you qualify for is based on the number of locations you submitted. A single location is eligible for up to $50,000. If you entered more than one location, the maximum award you qualify for is $100,000. The expenses you enter must be direct investments into your business that have had an impact on reducing the spread of infection. Each eligible expense you enter will be reviewed by the Department of Commerce to be certain it meets the eligibility requirements. Each expense line item will be added one at a time. Click the Add Expenditure button to begin. The Add Expenditure form has several required fields, a lookup field, and a date picker. Begin by entering the description of the qualifying purchase. Next, describe how this purchase qualifies for the ERG program. Enter the vendor of the purchase or who provided the bid, quote, or estimate. Using the lookup field, select the expenditure type. Only those values in this list apply and are eligible expenditures. If you have a bid, quote, or estimate, leave the date field blank. If you are submitting a receipt, use the date picker and enter the date on your receipt. Select whether you are supplying a receipt or a quote, estimate, or bid. Enter the total amount on the receipt. If the receipt has more than one qualifying expenditure type on it, that receipt will need to be uploaded and used for each qualifying expenditure line item you enter. Enter the qualifying purchase. Only include the value of the line item in this expenditure. Remember, sales tax is not an applicable qualifying purchase. All sales tax must be removed from the qualifying portion of the purchase. Enter the non-qualifying portion of the purchase from the receipt. Select Continue once complete. You must add an individual receipt, bid, or estimate for each line item expense you are requesting through the grant. The name of your purchase is displayed in the attachment screen. Click the Browse button to locate the attachment on your computer. Select the receipt and click Continue to add the attachment to your expenditure. The Qualified Expenditures screen will refresh and display the line item you added. To add additional expenses, click the Add Expenditure button and repeat the process. Remember, you must add one line item for each qualified expense you are applying for. Once all line item expenditures are entered into the system and displayed in the grid, select the Next button to go to the next page of the application. The next several pages of the application process are certifications. Again, the available responses are yes, agree, or no, disagree for each field. The first page certifies that your business was financially viable based on the following information in these 4 questions. Note, there are certain circumstances on the certification pages where a response may disqualify you from the application process. Be certain to read each question accurately and answer with the appropriate response based on your situation. Once the first page is complete, select the Next button. The second page of certifications are questions around how your business was financially negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, read each question and select the appropriate response. Once complete, select the Next button. The next page of certifications is requesting that you acknowledge that you read and understand the requirements regarding the improvements that are eligible for the ERG grant application. Review each question and enter the appropriate response. Once complete, select the Next button. The final page is the obligations page. Please review each obligation and certify that the information you've entered into this application is true and accurate, and that you will use the funds, if awarded, as you proposed in your grant application, that you will provide receipts as requested, and if you fail to spend the funds accurately, you will return or repay them. Once complete, select the Next button. The final page of the application is an overall review for you to be sure you've entered your information accurately. Scroll through the list of responses, and at the bottom of the page, if no changes are needed, click the Submit button. If you need to make changes, click the Previous button and return to the page where the changes are needed. Once submitted, you will have another acknowledgement box. Review the information and click the Submit button. This confirms that they have received your application. Return to the home page. It will display a list of applications once they are submitted. You will be able to view the current status of your application in the grid. Each time you log in and return to the application portal, you can determine if additional steps are required and what stage your application is in. There are 4 possible stages for an application: submitted, under review, awarded, or on hold awaiting additional information. As the Department of Commerce reviews your application and the submitted backup documentation for expenses, additional information for that documentation may be requested. The applicant will receive an email from the Department of Commerce requesting that they return to the portal and provide specific additional information outlined in the email. For example, they may request a more detailed receipt or bid. The details will be in the email. There will be a link in the email that will bring you back to the portal homepage. When you log in, the status reason for your application will say, "On hold, awaiting additional info." Click the link on the application line to open the application. The line item details for each expense are listed. Remember, each expense must have documentation attached or a valid receipt if the items are already purchased. The line item in question by the Department of Commerce will have an Add Info button. This will enable the applicant to add the requested information in the email. When the button is selected, a dialog box opens. It will list the details initially submitted with the expense. Scroll to the bottom and upload the additional documentation requested in the email. Include a description for the expense and search for the attachment. Once selected, click Continue and Save Expenditure. Once all line items are complete, select the Resubmit button. Select Proceed, and you will receive a confirmation that your application has been resubmitted to the Department of Commerce for consideration.
Thank you. As we move on to the next conversation, post-award obligations and opportunities. By applying for the ERG, you are agreeing to comply with program rules, to spend the money as proposed within 45 days of receipt, applying detailed documentation, returning the money if actual expenditures are less than the amount awarded, and returning money not spent within 45 days of the award. You must keep your documentation and be prepared for a post-award audit. If you receive the ERG, you will receive access to the North Dakota Smart Restart badge for your website and other materials to highlight your investments for your customers to assist you in showcasing your ERG improvements. The investments are important, but as important are that your customers know of them. That is what will inspire customer confidence. There are a few warnings that are very important. In Florida recently, a man allegedly bought a $318,000 Lamborghini with coronavirus aid. He was arrested and charged with making false statements to a lending institution, bank fraud, and engaging in transactions in unlawful proceeds. Don't do this. Do not remodel your business on the back of taxpayers. Do not buy infection control items and sell them on eBay. Don't stretch. The less directly your proposal is connected to infection control, the less likely it is to be approved. Again, be prepared for a post-award audit, which will be conducted randomly, which you agree to by applying for this grant. Have your record keeping in place and save your documentation in accordance with IRS records retention requirements. Be cyber safe. While we have gone to great lengths to ensure the system is secure, if your EIN and your social security number are not secured by you, you still have risk. In Montana, Nigerian hackers were able to obtain millions of dollars in benefits by using the social security numbers and names of real people that were acquired through past data breaches. These professional hackers have been waiting for a time like this, where trillions of dollars are being distributed very quickly. If you do not have identity theft protection in place, you may want to consider it. On to the Q&A. So we're going to move to a question and answer session. As mentioned, we won't likely get to all of the questions presented live here today, but don't let this stop you from submitting them. We will review each of them and we will make efforts to ensure that these questions are answered in the resources that we are developing.
Thank you, Michelle. As you mentioned, we are having some technical difficulty, so the questions are not all going to be answered today, but we'll work very hard to get them answered either through FAQs or individual responses. The first question we have, Michelle, is sales tax allowable?
Thank you, Maria. So those of you listening to the call here today, either recorded or live, note that I have mentioned this on 2 occasions. It is very important. Sales tax, whether it's state or local or any kind of sales tax, is not a permissible expense. So please do not submit for reimbursement of any type of sales tax, or do not include that in your proposal because it will stall your proposal and it may cause you to lose your place in line.
Thanks. Can a third party fill out my grant application?
Thanks. Again, this is reinforcing something we talked about a moment ago. The answer is no, and the reason for that is because the individual who's applying for the grant has the responsibility and the liability associated with it, and other people cannot make those commitments on your behalf. So the answer is no.
If I don't have access to a computer, is there somewhere I can go to be able to fill out this application?
Yes, thank you for the question, and thank you to our partners at the Small Business Development Centers across North Dakota. They have indicated to us that they are ready, willing, and eager to assist people that do not have access to computers. Not only will they help you have access to a computer, but they may also be able to provide you some assistance as you walk through the application.
A couple more questions here in the time we have. Should I show the total amount of my project on the application or just the amount of the related expenses that this grant applies to?
That's another good question. You definitely need to include the amount that you're asking for reimbursement or you're proposing to be reimbursed. So as you just saw in the application, you are going to be provided the opportunity to provide a number of, all the information that's necessary to understand what's being requested for reimbursement or in your proposal. So line by line, you'll be able to attach the documents that associate with the particular expense that you're asking to be reimbursed or proposing to be reimbursed.
Just so you clarify that question, each expense should be line item, correct?
That is correct. Thank you. Yep, that will make it easier for the reviewer. And while it will require some effort on your behalf, that is what is going to help your application move through this process more quickly.
Can you explain what a negative financial impact is? Does that mean that I have to have been in negative balance on my books?
It does not. That is a question that we have received fairly frequently. There's no fixed definition. There are a lot of ways one could have been negatively impacted by the coronavirus, from having been temporarily closed to decrease in revenue from 1 month, year over year. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be operating at a loss for your business.
Thank you. One more before we end here. Can you review again what kind of documents I will need to submit with my application?
Yes, you need to submit documents that support the expenses that you've already incurred if you're looking for reimbursement or that you propose to be incurred. Now, let me back up just a moment. You also, as you saw in the application, have to show the direct and profound connection between your proposal and how your proposal will control the spread of infection. And the more thorough and comprehensive and articulate you are in explaining that, the more smoothly the process will go. You have to submit very detailed documentation of the expense itself. So it must support dollars and cents ties to what you spent, with whom you spent it, or proposed to spend it. And it's very important that that documentation is specific. You will risk your place in line if you present general information where the reviewer just simply can't determine who you're proposing to pay, what you're proposing to pay for, and how that connects to your proposal. So in other words, we need you to do that work, because it is unlikely that your proposal will move through if your proposal requires the reviewer to try to figure out how your investment proposal connects to the spread of infection or how that's going to tie to the specific expenses involved.
One last question here. How much again is it that we may receive and how long do we have to spend it?
Yes. So the grants are available for up to $50,000 per business if you have one physical location in North Dakota. You do not need to request the whole amount. We don't estimate that most companies will, but it's $50,000 if you have one physical location. If you have more than one physical location, whether that be 2 or 52, you are eligible for up to $100,000. And you have only 45 days to spend that money from the time the grant is awarded, from the time you get an email from us that says, congratulations, you have been awarded. The clock starts ticking at the date of the award. So we recognize that it is a very short period of time. That's why we want you to be planning now. But again, there are a number of reasons for that sense of urgency. One is to get these improvements in place, because the sooner they are, the sooner that we start to get a handle on this infection, in addition to the really important practices of wearing masks and social distancing where possible and hand hygiene. there is a sense of urgency to get these improvements made, but also there is a sense of urgency imposed upon us by the CARES Act, which says that if we have not spent this money by December 29th, it will be returned to the federal government.
Thank you, Michelle. That's all the questions we have on here. But I do want to apologize for those of you that didn't get a chance to get your questions in. Please be sure and send us your questions at Business Help COVID-19. That's Business Help COVID-19 at nd.gov.
Thank you, Maria. So we're wrapping up here. I do want to remind North Dakota businesses that if your business was financially affected by COVID-19 and you have not accessed the Paycheck Protection Program, that deadline was extended to August 8th. It is possible that that deadline will be further extended, but at the time of this call and this recording, it has not, and the deadline is August 8th at the time of this call and this recording. Again, the PPP is a loan that can be used for payroll and related operating expenses. The loan is forgivable under certain circumstances. And on June 5th, when the Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act was passed, the forgiveness requirements were relaxed, making it even more appealing to businesses. The PPP is available to you through your local lender, and you can learn more about it at ndresponse.gov, COVID resources, under the Business and Employer button. Your business can also get assistance with the PPP loan and the forgiveness application through North Dakota's Small Business Development Centers. All right, we want to go on to talk about a few resources. If you find out that you are interested in applying for this grant, but you don't know what type of improvements are appropriate for your business, please consult ND Smart Restart protocols and also the CDC. There are a number of resources available by industry that may provide you ideas for infection control for your type of business, ranging from specific guidance for daycares, veterinarians, restaurants, and bars, to name a few. McKinsey & Company has also established itself as a leader in identifying safe reopening best practices. A simple Google search of McKinsey & Company reopening practices reveals a wealth of information and innovative suggestions. There are North Dakota-owned businesses that sell products and services from air system specialists to technology innovators. Where possible, we encourage you to shop North Dakota first. Please refer to our FAQs regularly. They are updated routinely and will continue to be updated throughout the application period as we answer questions of first impression. Consult our website, social media, and newsletters. And again, if you don't have access to a computer, you can seek assistance at North Dakota's Small Business Development Centers. And as Maria said, if questions remain, you can contact us at businesshelpcovid19.gov. Please be sensitive to the possibility that we will be receiving hundreds of inquiries over this time, and do your best to consult the FAQs first. For next steps, we hope that this information has been helpful and that you feel prepared to submit your application for the ERG. Thank you for attending, for being North Dakota Smart. Thank you for the privilege of supporting you during this time. And as we work to develop a process to swiftly deploy this grant in an impactful and responsible way, we will also appreciate your mutual support. We'll close by turning this over to Eric Spencer, the President and CEO of the Greater North Dakota Chamber, for some closing remarks.
Well, thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, Eric.
And again, I'm Eric Spencer, President and CEO of the Greater North Dakota Chamber. And on behalf of the Greater North Dakota Chamber and the North Dakota Department of Commerce, I want to thank you all for joining us today. I also want to thank those of you who listen to the recording for spending your time with us as well. Again, this recording and the materials from this business briefing will be available at ndresponse.gov's COVID-19 page in the Business and Employers section, as well as at ndchamber.com, along with all previous business briefings. In addition, at ndresponse.gov and on the ERG information page, you'll find the short training video that was shown earlier in this briefing. You can also go to ndresponse.gov for a variety of business resources, including details on North Dakota Smart Restart and FAQs and many other topics. Please stay safe, be North Dakota smart, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. The live event has